Hello class, in this video I'm going to discuss the heart, how blood pumps through the heart, and the chambers of the heart. What's important about this is that I'm going to use a couple of colors. Number one, when the blood has high levels of carbon dioxide, I'm going to use the colors blue. In reality, this is not the real color. It's generally like a dark maroon color, Aggie maroon, okay? And then when it has oxygen in it, it's going to be a red coloration. That means that oxygen is present. A couple of things that's important as far as naming things. Arteries always pump blood away from the heart, and veins pump blood to the heart. So we start off with our story talking about some veins that pump blood to the heart. But prior to that, it's also important to recognize that as far as right and left, we use anatomical right and left, in which this is the right side and this is the left side of the heart. It's unlike the way that you're seeing it, in which it's your left or your right. So blood comes from the lower body through this tube right here. This is known as the inferior vena cava. And it enters from the top part of your body through the superior vena cava. These two tubes, these two veins, pump blood into this chamber right here. And this chamber here is known as the right atrium. The right atrium then pumps this blood through this area right here that I'm highlighting, and this is a special valve. It is known as a cuspid valve, and this particular cuspid valve has 3 cusps to it, so this is known as a tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve functions in which it opens up in only one direction, and it does not allow blood to travel back after it's pumped from the atrium, okay? And it does not allow it back into the atrium. We do only want blood going in a single direction. We don't want it backflowing. And a lot of backflow could be a big problem. From that area, blood travels from the right atrium through the tricuspid valve and into this spot here, and this spot is the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, which pumps, blood is sent up this way. And it goes through this valve right here. And this valve leads to these tubes. Before I talk about those valves, I want to talk about the tube. This tube right here is known as the pulmonary trunk. Since this blood flow is going out of the heart through this valve and into this tube, it's going to lead to these 2 tubes here, which are known as pulmonary arteries. In this particular case, this is the left pulmonary artery, and this one over here is the right pulmonary artery. Now back to this valve. Since I spoke about the left and right pulmonary artery, what was the name of this valve that's right here? Okay, the name of that valve is known as the pulmonary valve. This valve is a little bit different from the cuspid valve. These valves are semilunar valves, and it's one of 2 semilunar valves. At this point, so let's go trace our points. Blood enters into the right atrium from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. From there, it's pushed through the tricuspid valve. It's just an opening, and into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle is pumped through the pulmonary valve and goes through the pulmonary arteries. Remember, they're arteries now because blood is being pumped away from the heart. The pulmonary arteries send blood to the lungs. Remember that this blood is still blue, which means it is high in carbon dioxide content, low in oxygen content. When at the lungs, carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen. That's the purpose of hemoglobin. And then that oxygenated blood is then pumped back to the heart through these tubes here. And all four of those tubes drain into this cavity right here. Well, what's the name of those tubes? Well, they're going back to the heart. So these tubes here are known as pulmonary. In this case, this would be the left pulmonary veins. They're very unique veins because they have high oxygen content. Most veins do not. So this one right here is the right pulmonary vein. From there, blood enters into this chamber right here, and the name of this chamber is the left atrium. It's similar to the right atrium. And then it goes through this area that I'm going to highlight yellow right here. And that's another cuspid valve that's going to be present right there. The name of this cuspid valve is known as a bicuspid valve. From there to the bicuspid valve, this blood travels through and into this area here. And this is known as the left ventricle. And then this blood is pumped through another semilunar valve. And that one's the one I'm highlighting yellow right here. And this semilunar valve, I'm going to color it green to label it, is known as the aortic valve. And it leads to this tube that's kind of imposed over the other tubes, this thing called the aorta. And in fact, this area that arches around of the aorta is known as the aortic arch. This area right here, if I keep going down right here, that's the same portion of the aorta that goes down. It's not descending aorta. Okay, so let's go see what we started off at. Blood enters to the heart through the inferior and superior vena cava. This blood is deoxygenated blood. Once here, it goes into the right atrium. From there, the right atrium pumps blood to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it pumps blood through the pulmonary valve. From the pulmonary valve, it pumps blood through the pulmonary arteries. And once at the pulmonary arteries, it goes to the lungs. Once the blood enters the lungs, it receives oxygen. When it receives oxygen, it enters back in through the left and right pulmonary veins, in which it goes to the left pulmonary artery. The left aorta. From the left aorta, it goes to the left ventricle. In order to do that, it has to bypass the bicuspid valve. From the left ventricle, it has to go to the aortic valve, into the aorta, and from the aorta, it goes to the rest of the body.